Hi there, Ivan from the Lacroix Cruiser to talk to you about tools. Tools of the trade when we're converting a bus. First thing you'll see on the table here is hammers. Yes, you need hammers, especially if you're taking the bus apart. If you're starting with a blank slate, so a bus that still has seats, you're going to need hammers and you're going to need pry bars, wrecking bars, alignment bars. You're going to need them all. These are basic cheap tools. You can get them anywhere. Hammers, we have different variety of hammers. We've got the dead blow hammer, we have the claw hammer, and the ball peen hammer. They've all been used so far in this bus. The next thing is punches. Now, we have this really nice punch that has interchangeable heads, so we don't have to have a big series of punches, and it has a nice handle, but you can get very simple punches as well. Now, why do we need punches? Buses have a lot of rivets, and these rivets, well, if you punch out the center of the rivet with this and cut the head off with the next tool, this, it makes removing rivets a lot faster and a lot easier. Now, speaking of removing rivets, if you have a compressor, and a compressor I consider an essential tool, but you don't need one if you don't have one, but Craigslist is always there. You can find one easily normally. This, with the chisel on it, is great for cutting off the heads of rivets. So one little pull of the trigger, that rivet is gone. And then you use the punch to take out what's remaining. Speaking of destruction, we have these grinders. Now, there's a lot of metal in these buses, and again, if you're taking seats out, you'll really appreciate the grinder. But we also use the grinder in finishing to align pieces, to just shave a little bit off. And these flap wheels, as seen on this grinder, are amazing. They do a great job and they last a long time. And on metal, they actually cut faster than the traditional disc, or they surface faster. For a cutting disc, these are great. Now, if you're cutting aluminum, get aluminum specific discs. They are worth the extra money because they're not going to clog up like a standard metal cutting disc. The other thing I have here is an extension cord. Now, this is a very special extension cord. It's a company called PowerLock, and you can buy these online from their website, and I'll have a link below. But the PowerLock cord has one really big advantage. So you're up on a ladder and you need to move around. Oops. The PowerLock cord, you can't pull it apart until you pull this little ring, and then it pulls right out. So the PowerLock cords are great, and the green light doesn't tell you you have power, it tells you you have a ground connection. The red light on the other end, when it's plugged into the wall, that's the one that tells you that you have power. And also, fun little fact, you can get these personalized. So you can put the name of your bus on it if you want, so it doesn't walk away on you if someone likes it better than you do. Now, welder. Why is a welder here? Well, there's rust on these things. We're not buying brand new buses normally to convert them, so you'll need to replace the odd piece of metal here and there. Learn how to use a welder. It's not difficult. This is a very inexpensive arc welder. Just uses little metal rods like this, snap in. Now this is a used one. They're normally a lot longer, but the welder, it's not difficult to learn how to use. You can take a YouTube University course on it and be very well off with it. Next, measuring tools. We have framing squares. We have multiple tape measures. Why multiple tape measures? You're always going to misplace one. I'm always looking for a tape measure, so by having multiples, it's a good thing. Now, I'm in Canada, and Canada uses the metric system. So this tape measure has both inches and metric. To me, not a good thing. My favorite tape measure is this one here, because it reads the same on both sides of the tape measure. So if you're using the metric system, get a metric only tape measure. If you're using the imperial system, you get an imperial only tape measure. A chalk line. Now, a chalk line, very simple tool. for making straight lines. A bus, it's on a suspension. It's not level, it's not square. So if you need to make straight lines, let's say something you want 30 inches off the floor. Well, it's easy to put two lines, two marks, one end, set up your chalk line, pull it, and now you have a straight line. You didn't have to use a level. You're using your floor or some point in your bus as a reference. These little squares, speed squares, are great as well. They allow you to put it that way, and now you can do a straight line without having to guess with a framing square. Sharpies, a very used tool for us, and pencils, obviously. Next, light. You're working in maybe underneath the bus, you're working in the bays, you're working in different areas. The more lights you have, the better off you are. And we need to cut stuff as well. I have a variety of saws here. And these saws, they're all battery powered. We like the Ryobi line. It's inexpensive, they're available everywhere, and the warranty is good. Now, there's some better tools on the market, let's say Milwaukee, DeWalt, Makita, but the price goes up as well. And these we found have worked well for us. So the first tool, especially when you're talking about taking the bus apart, is one of these, a reciprocating saw. But you'll notice I don't have a blade on my reciprocating saw. I've got this nice little tool. And you can put metal cutting blades, wood cutting blades, and scrapers like this. This is great for removing adhesives. It's great for removing panels, getting in between areas, just to bring things up. A bus, not many straight lines inside unless you build them. They have curves, they have all sorts of stuff. So a jigsaw, a very useful tool. Now, we use a table saw for cutting straight lines. Not everybody has the luxury of having a table saw, so a good circular saw will also help as well. Using a straight edge to go along there, you'll find great uses for this. A caulking gun. Now, when we're putting panels together, when we're sealing things up, a caulking gun is very important to have. This particular caulking gun is a dripless caulking gun. So when I pull on the trigger, product comes out, but as soon as I release, it actually pulls back a little bit. So I don't have to worry about it dripping ever. And I've had it for a long while and it's never dripped. This one also has a few really neat features. One of them is in this hole here. It cuts the end off of your tube. So you don't need to look for a knife. And it has this to break the membrane inside so you can get the product out of the tube. So this is and it's a nice ergonomic tape measure, it's a nice ergonomic caulking gun. When we're putting things together, we need different ways of putting things together. That's why we have these products here. Now, when we're putting two pieces of metal, we can butt them together, but if we put a flange on it and allow them to sit behind each other, it's a much better alternative. We saw the hammer over here. There's an attachment for it here to make a flange. So it just basically kinks the end of your metal. If you want to get fancy, you can buy a tool specifically for doing the flange. And this one is a flange and punch. So on this side, it'll punch a little hole in your metal as well. Rivet guns. There's this style of rivet gun. Avoid them for a couple reasons. First reason is when you're forcing here, your rivet is here. And it's going to pull a weird angle every time. And these are a lot of work to use, especially if you're using 1/4-inch rivets. If you have a compressor, you can pick up an air-powered rivet gun. They're spectacular. If not, this style of rivet gun does a great job. So it just pulls the rivet in, and once it gets to the end, breaks off the metal piece in the center. The other thing I have here is a threaded insert or a riv nut gun. Now you can get this style as well, and I've got one on order, but it hasn't arrived yet. But these allow you to put in these threaded inserts. So if there's something that you're attaching to the metal that you want to be able to bolt and unbolt, you can get these in aluminum, you can get these in metal. And when you pull on the handles, it deforms this. It acts very much like a rivet. So these are great tools. Let's move these rivets along. A cordless drill. We have multiple cordless drills for reasons. They're used everywhere. They're used for taking things apart, they're used for assembling, they're used for drilling, obviously, but a couple accessories that I find very handy. First of all, what you see on it, one of these multiple step bits for cutting metal. It's a great tool to have. If you're needing to countersink holes, there's different types of countersinks. Now, this one here is great on wood. These are spectacular on metal. These on metal are pretty much useless. So if you're doing a metal countersink, these work well, and for wood, these work well. This is a tool. This one is Montana brand. This is a Makita. There's Cobalt. You can find these in different brands, whatever brand you want. But this allows you to do a couple different things. This one has a drill and a countersink built in. And when you flip it around, you have a driver for your screw. This one has a centering device and a drill in the center of it. So when you drill, it's going to always be centered in your hole. And then, of course, on the other hand, you have your driver. Driving bits, get the good ones. The cheap ones, no good. And get different lengths. Now, in the US, everyone seems to be using the Phillips or Starhead drivers. In Canada, we use the Robertson. The Robertson has a few advantages. One of them is it actually holds the screw quite well because of the design of it. So you can do anything you want with it. The screw is going to stay there until you pull it off. Speaking of screws, we have the metal screw. These are self-drilling, self-tapping, and these particular ones have this style of head, but there's different heads. But the self-drilling aspect of it and self-tapping is spectacular, saves you a lot of time. Having to switch from drill bits to screws. It does it all. Clamps. We need various clamps. They're an additional hand. Yes, in my case, Sylvie is with me at my side all the time, but sometimes we need more than 4 hands. We need 5, we need 6. That's why we have different types of clamps. These clamps are great, they're quick, they're easy to use, but they're not very strong. This type of clamp, very strong, a little more inconvenient to use. But having a variety of clamps will help. Assembling projects when we get to that point. The Craig jig. Now, you'll see the Craig jig used in a lot of different ways, but the Craig jig, what it does is simply, it's a pocket hole screw device. The pocket holes allow you to put 2 pieces together, either butt them or 90 degrees, and securely with screws, no screwing around, pun intended, and makes it a very simple tool. Now this is the base model. There's some that are bolted to a bench, but great project to use, great way of using things. This is an accessory clamp for it. This is what holds it to your piece of wood. So we have these registration points. You put it up against there. The drill has a collet on it. You drill through, and then you drive screws into it. So that's the Craig jig. If you have a compressor, you can have one of these, an air nailer. So when we're putting the bus together, very useful tool to have. This is a combination tool. I can use finishing nails or I can use staples in it. And finally, ladders and scaffolding. These things are tall. Scaffolding makes it a lot more convenient, and this is just two 2x10s screwed together and glued. Makes it a lot more solid than just having one plank, and it allows you to get to different heights and having different ladders. This ladder folds and goes up, and this ladder we actually carry in the bus with us at all times. It folds down into a very compact ladder, but is sturdy. It can go up to 17 feet tall, and it's adjustable. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions about these tools, feel free to ask. You can leave it in the comments below. And in the description of the video, you'll find a list of other YouTube channels that we enjoy watching about bus conversions. So thanks for watching. Have a great day.